going to be watching... Hello guys, today we are live. We are going to be watching his story. So, let's get right into it.
And hid money in a sock under my mattress. I researched bus routes and cities where 2 teenage boys could disappear, but I needed more money than minimum wage could give me. That's when I started thinking about the chest again. The opportunity came 6 months later when Dad left for a weekend hunting trip. I shook Joel awake at midnight. "We're leaving tonight." We crept down to the garage with flashlights, and my hands were trembling as I pulled the tarp off the chest. I found a crowbar on the wall and wedged it under the lock. It took 3 tries before the metal snapped. Inside was nothing like I'd imagined. Stacks of $100 bills wrapped in rubber bands. Underneath the money was a black handgun and a box of bullets. And at the very bottom, photographs. I held one up to my flashlight and my stomach lurched. It was Dad as a kid, maybe 7 or 8 years old, with bruises covering his...
Yeah? Doesn't it send you a notification?
Arms and face. Standing...
No?
Behind him was a man who looked like an older, meaner version of my father, his father. I grabbed all the money and stuffed it in my backpack. Joel reached for the gun, but I slapped his hand away. We're not like him. We left the gun exactly where we found it. 3 months later, my aunt tracked us down at the motel where we'd been staying. "He's gone." I gripped the phone harder. "What do you mean gone? He went into the garage 3 nights ago and didn't come out. Your mom heard screaming for hours. Then one loud bang. My legs gave out, and I sat..."
What'd you say? No? No?
Down hard on the motel bed. "He left a note," she said. 5 words. I failed. I couldn't break the cycle. I didn't cry because I missed him. I cried because I finally understood him. He'd kept those photos his whole life, evidence of what his father did to him. He knew exactly what he was doing to us, and he couldn't stop himself. The chest wasn't a secret. It was a confession he couldn't make out loud. Joel and I never touched a belt, never raised our voice, never lifted a hand. The cycle broke with us. My daughter finally brought home a boyfriend I didn't want to kill. I'd been striking out with her boyfriends for 6 straight years. Kevin stole $20 from my wallet during Thanksgiving dinner. Brad showed up wasted to my wife's birthday and puked all over our new carpet. Then there was Connor, who called me sir while dealing weed to middle schoolers behind the 7-Eleven. So when my daughter Alyssa said she was bringing home her new college boyfriend for spring break, I braced myself for another disaster. "His name's Alex," she announced. "And he's different, Dad." Right. I'd heard that line before every single time. Alex rolled up Friday afternoon in a beat-up Honda older than my daughter. He walked to our door with nervous energy and a firm handshake. "Nice to meet you, Mr. Palos," he said, looking me dead in the eye. Most of her exes couldn't manage that much. Still, I'd learned not to trust good first impressions. During dinner, he was polite enough, asked about my work, complimented my wife's enchiladas, helped clear plates without being asked. He kept his phone in his pocket the entire meal. I found myself grudgingly impressed, but experience taught me the charming ones were usually the most dangerous. 2 nights later, I was in the garage at midnight wrestling with my motorcycle's stubborn carburetor. Alex appeared in the doorway looking sheepish. "Saw the light and thought you might need help. My dad and I used to work on bikes before he passed. I know engines pretty well." Instead of awkward small talk, he rolled up his sleeves and actually knew what he was doing. We worked in comfortable silence for an hour. He handed me tools before I asked. When we finally got the engine purring, he didn't take credit, just smiled and said it felt good to work with his hands again. Next morning, I found my toolbox organized better than it had been in years, every socket in its place. A note read, "Thanks for letting me help." Reminded me of my old man. I was starting to like this kid, but I was still waiting for the catch. 6 years of losers had trained me too well. On their last day, my wife collapsed in the kitchen making breakfast. 1 second she was flipping pancakes. The next, she hit the floor hard. Looked like a heart attack. Alyssa started screaming. I fumbled with my phone, hands shaking too bad to dial. Alex dropped to his knees beside my wife and started checking her pulse with steady hands. "He's an EMT, Alyssa sobbed. "An EMT. I'd been so busy hunting for red flags I never once asked what he did for work. He kept my wife conscious and calm while we waited for paramedics, talking in that steady voice first responders use. At the hospital, Alex stayed 8 hours even though his flight left that evening. Missed his connection. Paid $400 to rebook. When I tried to reimburse him, he refused. Alyssa needed me here. That's what you do for family. While we waited for test results, he quietly handled everything I was too stressed to think about. Called Alyssa's work, picked up prescriptions, made sure we had food at home, called my wife's sister so I didn't have to repeat the story 10 times. My wife was fine, just exhaustion and low blood sugar. Driving him to the airport the next day, Alex turned to me. "Mr. Palos, I love your daughter. I'd like your permission to propose after graduation." I pulled over and looked at this kid who'd proven himself when it mattered most. After 6 years of losers and letdowns, my daughter finally found a keeper. "You have my blessing," I said. "They're getting married next summer." He already calls me Dad. Everyone at our school knew Luis was a drug dealer. He didn't even try to hide it. The cops would pull him over for just existing, and whenever they caught kids with something, they'd instantly search him. But every time they did, they never caught him with anything. Police would show up and rip his locker open, pat him down, and he just laughed at them every time. One time, someone spread a rumor that it was in a locker nobody used, so they cut locks off every single locker. Still, they found nothing. They had literally no idea what to do. Every time they caught them with something, they'd say, "I bought this from Luis." He'd even tell them to. Our principal was furious until he figured it out. Over Christmas break, his son asked for shoes with a secret compartment in them, and it hit him. It immediately clicked. The first day back at school, he immediately called Luis into the office, and the second he walked in, the principal said, "Take off your shoes." Luis's eyes went wide, and our principal stood there. He knew he had them. Now, he had no choice, and took them off. Our principal was literally shaking with excitement, and the second he saw the shoes, his face lit up. He was right. Luis's shoes had hidden compartments in them. He knew he had him, but when he pushed them open, he was confused. They were completely empty, and Luis was laughing his ass off. "What is this? Where are they?" And Luis thought it was so funny. He told him he just got back from vacation. He didn't take any orders yet. We got a call from a woman terrified for her life, saying her ex-husband just broke into her house. She saw he had a gun with him and begged us to hurry. He was in prison after she came forward about being abused by him, but right after he was released, he went to her house looking for revenge. We told her to stay calm and keep the bathroom door locked, and immediately bolted down to the car, adrenaline pumping. But just as we got there, I realized I forgot the keys upstairs. I had to run upstairs to get them, not realizing that it cost us almost an entire minute. We circled the house and kicked in the door. "Police, get your ass on the ground!" My team was moving upstairs, but as we did, when we heard him break the bathroom door down, we all looked at each other and we rushed up. But just before we got to the top, he shot. Everyone flinched and covered their heads. We heard multiple pops, thankfully none of them hitting my team. But when we looked up, my partner was aiming his gun. He was on the floor. I knew there was no time, so I rushed over to the bathroom, praying the woman was alive. But my heart dropped. I looked inside and instantly recognized who it was. She was my daughter's best friend, but one of the bullets had hit her in the chest, and as they told me she didn't make it, I burst out crying. We were only a few seconds late. If I wasn't so careless, she'd still be alive. We were in the middle of a test when I caught a student whispering and pointing into his backpack. But just as I was about to stand up and bust him for cheating, he pulled out something metal and black. This kid was known for causing trouble and harassing multiple girls, one of them being my daughter. And since I was lucky enough to teach her that year, she was sitting right in front of him. I instantly started getting nervous. I didn't have a clear enough view to be sure what it was, but knew I had to get a better look, so I stood up pretending to help one of my students. However, the second I got a closer look, I realized what it was. It was a handgun. My hands started shaking, but as I sat back down, I dialed 911 on my phone, but knew he'd hear me if I even whispered. I knew I couldn't just walk out of the room and leave them in there, so I texted our principal, praying he'd respond. Sweat was dripping onto my desk, and as he held up finger guns at her, I knew I couldn't wait any longer. That's when I got an idea. I looked at that same student and wrote her a note that said, "Ask me to use the bathroom. Go get the principal, get him to check his phone, and leave the school immediately." And when I handed it to her, she could see how terrified I was. But without saying anything, she left the room. It took everything to hold back my tears. But then someone knocked on the door. Our principal walked in the room, and I immediately saw the kid get nervous. The principal walked up and asked him, "Could you come into the hall with me?" And he stood up with one hand still in his backpack. My heart raced as he walked past my daughter, but just before he finally left the room, he stopped. Everyone watched, and I saw him unzip his bag. My heart stopped, but before anyone could do anything, he pulled out the gun and aimed it directly at my daughter. I yelled, "No, don't!" and everyone screamed. I ran towards her, diving in front of her to stop it. I saw police running in behind him, but in slow motion, I saw him pull the trigger. This was it for me. I heard the click and was ready to take a bullet to the spleen, but when I hit the ground, I felt nothing. The police ran in and grabbed him from behind, and when the gun hit the floor, I saw he forgot to take the safety off. The bus driver looked at me through the mirror and said, "Kid, don't get off at your stop today." He reached back with his phone showing my mom's number. I grabbed it and called her. A man with a thick accent answered, telling me to come straight home, but I heard my mom screaming, "Don't come home, run." The bus driver instantly grabbed his radio. "Code red on bus 19. I need police at every stop." He told me to get on the floor. I dropped between the seats. From the floor, I saw us passing my house. A white van was parked in the driveway. 3 men in ski masks stood around it, and one was holding zip ties. My phone buzzed. A photo of my dad tied up in our basement with blood running down his face. years. Another text saying, "Get off at the next stop or he dies. You have 60 seconds." The bus driver looked at my screen and shook his head. "It's a trap. Don't move." I started sobbing, asking what was happening, and he just said, "My dad isn't who I think he is." Two more white vans pulled up on both sides of the bus. He reached under his dashboard and pulled out a satellite phone. "Target's been found. Family's taken. I need extraction now for the package." He glanced at me. "Yes, the package is secure." The white vans rammed us from both sides. Kids were screaming. He slammed the gas and plowed straight through. He told me my dad had been undercover investigating a trafficking ring for 5 years. Someone leaked his identity this morning. A van slammed into our back bumper and he yanked the wheel hard left. "They're Russian mafia." A helicopter appeared overhead and a spotlight hit the bus. His jaw clenched. New plan. He handed me a backpack from under his seat. He pointed at a building with a red door and told me to run straight to it when he stopped driving. I asked about my parents and he said the photo was fake. My parents were in witness protection already. He slammed the brakes and hit a button. The emergency exit flew open. I ran fast with the backpack bouncing on my back. I heard gunshots, but I kept looking straight. The red door opened before I reached it. A woman in tactical gear pulled me inside. She handed me a phone. I heard my mom, "Baby, we're okay. We're all okay." I dropped to the floor and gasped from relief. 2 months later, I found out my dad had been undercover for 5 years. The bus driver was my shadow guardian, and 27 members of the trafficking ring were arrested. I showed my 4-year-old daughter a magic trick, and her reaction changed how I saw her forever. I sat down with my wife and daughter at a table and placed a candy in each of our hands. I closed my daughter's fist around her candy and told her to squeeze really hard. I told my wife the same. Then I blew on each of our fists, saying, "Now open." My wife still had one candy, but now my daughter had 2, and I had none. You see, I had my candy palmed the whole time, and while closing my daughter's fist around her candy, I was able to slip mine in without her noticing. My daughter looked at the candy in my wife's hand and watched her eat it. Then she looked closely at the 2 candies in her hand and the 0 candies in mine. I made a sad face to really sell my disappointment, and that's when something amazing happened. My daughter took her second candy and placed it back in my hand. Daddy had a candy too. She reached over and started physically turning my frown into a smile. "I won't let magic person steal your candy." In the middle of a test, the sprinklers started spraying. Everyone instantly screamed, "Ah!" But I realized it wasn't water spraying on us. Someone yelled, "What is this? What is on us?"
Wait, I need to check something. Let me check the chat. Nobody's watching that.
All tried to stand up and run, but everyone was slipping. The alarm blared, and the principal yelled on the speaker, "Everyone needs to get out of the building immediately." Noticing, my daughter looked at the candy in my wife's hand and watched her eat it. Then she looked closely at the 2 candies in her hand and the 0 candies in mine. I made a sad face to really sell my disappointment, and that's when something amazing happened. My daughter took her second candy and placed it back in my hand. Daddy had a candy too. She reached over and started physically turning my frown into a smile. "I won't let magic person steal your candy." In the middle of a test, the sprinklers started spraying. Everyone instantly screamed, "Ah!" But I realized it wasn't water spraying on us. Someone yelled, "What is this? What is on us?" We all tried to stand up and run, but everyone was slipping. The alarm blared, and the principal yelled on the speaker, "Everyone needs to get out of the building immediately. There is an active threat inside." But just before we could get out, our teacher stepped in the way. He said, "Wait, I think I just saw the threat out there." But the hall was empty. "There's nobody out there. Let us out." I tried to grab the handle, but he slapped my hand. "No, nobody's leaving." Everyone was coughing, and that's when I realized I liked the smell. Oh my God, it was gasoline. Half the class rushed over to the windows, but we couldn't just jump out because we were on the 3rd floor. Stacy yelled, "Please, let us out. We have to make a run for it." But he just stood there. He just said, 30 more seconds. Everyone was confused. "What? We need to go. We'll die from the fumes." But he just smiled. 20. "What if a fire starts? We'll all burn." 10 seconds. A girl yelled, "Ah! It's in my eyes. I can't see." It was complete chaos until our teacher reached for the lock. He turned it. The door clicked open and someone walked in. "Thanks for letting me in, Dad." Stacy yelled, "Dad, you have a son?" They both turned around, locking eyes straight onto me. We all started backing up, and when I saw the guy's face, my heart sank. I recognized him. He pointed straight at me and said, You put me in jail for 5 years. Now it's finally time to get revenge." I couldn't believe my eyes. This was the same guy I had called the police on 5 years ago. He had tried to rob my grandma at gunpoint and had been waiting to get me back. We watched him pull something out of his pocket and hold it up, and we saw it was a Bic lighter. Everyone started panicking because one tiny flame, and we'd all immediately literally burn. I yelled, "No, please, you'll kill us all." He just smiled. He started flicking, and we all yelled, "Stop, please, we'll all die." He flicked over and over, and I knew I had to stop him before it worked. "Please, my grandma was all I had. I didn't mean to make you suffer." And when I said that, I saw our teacher look at me, but he looked upset. We were all crying, and I saw him really looking at his son like he didn't know who he was. Flick, flick. Then finally, it caught a flame. He held it up, but I saw our teacher pick up the fire extinguisher from the wall. I knew there was no way that tiny thing would save us from the fire, but his son said, "This is for what you did, for putting me in prison with those diddlers. Say goodbye." But right before he dropped the lighter, our teacher raised the fire extinguisher, and in one moment, he slammed it down on his son's head hard. His son instantly fell over, and our teacher stood there panting. He was crying. "I'm so sorry. I failed all of you. My son was a monster." The police ran in and grabbed him, and he looked at me one more time with tears in his eyes.
Shoot. Bro, this is... Alright guys, today we are watching the March Compilation.
As they took him out. When they tried to put my brother with Down syndrome in prison, I burst out laughing. We couldn't afford to put my brother in a special program, so he was bullied constantly. He'd always just smile until he learned to middle finger people when they were mean, and when he made everyone laugh at them, they decided they needed to get revenge. He was walking with my mom, and a group of them decided to terrorize him. "What's up, Extra Downy?" They threw basically every chromosome joke at him they could, but when that didn't work, they moved on to my mom. She was pregnant, and they all threw things at her. "Trying again, huh? One monkey baby wasn't enough?" She was begging them, "Please stop, I'm pregnant." But they did not care one bit. She felt him clench her hand harder, and she was so scared, she started tearing up. My brother stayed calm, but the second he saw her starting to cry, he completely lost control. He immediately screamed, sprinting towards them full of rage. They were shocked, and he grabbed one of them, body slamming him onto the ground. The rest of them ran away, trying to get the attention of nearby police. He yelled, "You hurt mama," and he literally wouldn't stop swinging. The police had to grab them and cuff him. When the other kid's face was unrecognizable, they screamed to put him in jail. The judge took one look at him sitting there smiling and let him walk free. And as they screamed, he gave them his signature move. A student made a girl cry in my class, but it was so funny, I let him get away with it. As soon as she walked into my class that year, I immediately knew she was gonna be my problem student. She'd constantly watch TikTok in class and bully others. And when I took her phone, she lied to the principal that I assaulted her. We had a group project, and the entire class, she was bullying a shy kid, calling him a chopped loser. But she had no idea what was coming. I walked up to her and told her to stop. But as soon as I did, she threatened to call her mom and tell her I touched her inappropriately. She said, "It's not my fault he's such a loser. Nobody likes him for a reason." All of the students around her started laughing at him, and I could see his eyes start watering. I knew it was enough. I snapped at her saying, "Hey, you need to shut your mouth. I wouldn't be surprised if he's your boss one day." She stood up, ready to call her mom and get me fired. When the shy kid finally spoke, he cut in between us and said, "No thanks. I don't want to be a pimp when I grow up." My son went to blow out his birthday candles, but his aunt leaned in last second and blew them out for him. She'd been doing this for the last 4 years, never once caring it made my son cry. Not only that, but she'd also come wearing designer dresses and professional makeup to make the day about herself. She said she was too poor to celebrate birthdays as a child, so this was her way of taking back her childhood. So when my son's 10th birthday came around, I had an idea. I brought out the largest cake I'd ever bought. It had 3 layers, weighed 8 pounds, and had the candles already lit and placed. I glanced over at her face and saw what she was planning. We sang happy birthday, and my son went to blow the candles out. That's when she leaned in like always and blew hard. But what she didn't know was that I'd hidden springs inside the cake. Springs that were held down by temperature-sensitive latches that only stayed closed when in contact with heat. So as long as the candles were lit, the cake stayed together. But when she blew them out, the heat went away and the latches opened. The springs released, launching the entire center of the 8-pound cake into her face, covering her done-up hair, her professional makeup, and Gucci dress. My son started laughing so hard he was crying, and she ran out in tears. That's when I brought out the second non-booby-trapped cake for my son. My daughter came home crying with an F because her teacher doesn't know what color blood is. The first time I realized something was wrong, Riley came home from school holding out her arm. "Look, Dad, you can see the blue blood in my veins right here." She traced the blue lines under her skin with her finger. I put down my coffee and looked at her. "Actually, sweetheart, that's not true. Blood is always red because of hemoglobin. It's just darker red in your veins." Her face scrunched up. But Mrs. Miller showed us a whole PowerPoint about it. She even had diagrams from a science book. The next morning, I packed my work scrubs in my bag. I'm an ER nurse at Mercy General, and I was working the afternoon shift anyway. I sent Mrs. Miller an email asking if I could do a quick presentation about blood for career day that afternoon. She loved the idea. When I arrived, Mrs. Miller introduced me as Riley's dad, who works at the hospital. 28 kids stared up at me from their desks. I heard you guys learned that blood is blue inside your body, I said. The entire class nodded enthusiastically. Mrs. Miller beamed from her desk in the corner. I pulled out a blood collection tube from my pocket and held it up. This is what we use to draw blood at the hospital. Notice something. The tube creates a vacuum. No oxygen inside at all. I paused. When we draw blood with these, it never touches oxygen until we pop the cap off. I showed them photos on my phone of sealed blood tubes. See? Still red. Mrs. Miller's smile started fading. She shifted in her chair and cleared her throat. A boy raised his hand and pointed to their science textbook. But our textbook says it's blue. I picked up the book and checked the publication date, 1998. Medicine updates pretty fast. We used to think lots of things that turned out to be wrong. Mrs. Miller suddenly stood up from her desk, her hands gripping the edge. Well, thank you for that interesting presentation, Mr. Johnson, but we need to move on to math now. I nodded and started packing when a girl in the back raised her hand. So our textbook is wrong? The class erupted in whispers. Mrs. Miller's jaw clenched and her voice got tight. The curriculum says, actually, I interrupted, pulling up the state science standards on my phone. I walked over and turned my phone toward her. The current curriculum specifically mentions this myth as something to correct. She stared at the screen and her eyes narrowed. Her mouth pressed into a thin line and her nostrils flared. Can I speak with you in the hallway? The kids watched as we walked out and the door closed behind us. Do you have any idea how hard it is when parents undermine my authority? Her face was red and her voice was sharp. Now they'll question everything I say. I kept my voice calm. Isn't that exactly what we want them to do? Question things and learn critical thinking? She crossed her arms tightly. I've been teaching for 22 years. I'm not changing my whole curriculum because some nurse thinks he knows better than our textbooks. The next day, I found out Mrs. Miller gave the class a pop quiz. Riley came home crying, her face red and puffy. Her hands were shaking as she handed me a paper with a big red F on it. I took a deep breath and felt my jaw tighten as I looked at the question. What color is blood inside the body? Riley had written red, and Mrs. Miller had marked it wrong. I requested a meeting with Principal Davis and brought printouts of medical textbooks, the state science standards, and Riley's quiz. The principal called in Mrs. Miller and asked her directly, is blood blue inside the body? After a long pause, Mrs. Miller said, it's what the children understand better. I leaned forward in my chair. My daughter is crying every morning before school because she's afraid of getting F's for writing down the truth. The next day, the school replaced their science books. Now whenever Riley learns something new at school, she comes home and asks me, Dad, is this actually true or is it just a Mrs. Miller truth? At the ice cream truck, the man told me, don't mind if this tastes funny. I thought it was weird, but really wanted ice cream. My friends were already eating theirs, and chocolate was dripping down their fingers. Does yours taste normal? I said, as I turned to my little sister. She just shrugged without saying anything, and her tongue was already stained bright blue as she kept eating like nothing was wrong. So I started eating mine too. It tasted amazing, but seconds later, I started to feel off. The world started spinning. I felt like I was gonna pass out until someone grabbed my shoulder. Need some water, buddy? It was the ice cream man. He pulled me towards the ice cream truck, and I saw the water in the back. He told me to go get some, and my mouth was so dry I knew I had to. I walked inside, and he said, when's your dad coming back? I just wanted the water, but said, probably not for a few minutes. Why? He got a weird smile on his face. Then, he grabbed the whole tub of the ice cream he gave me. Go give some to your friends, then you can all come back for some free water. I thought they'd all be so happy, so I stumbled back out to give it to them. They were all so excited, but just before my sister took a bite, my dad stopped her. Hey, where'd you get that? Everyone started eating, and I said, the nice man in the truck gave it to us for free. My dad was a cop, so instantly looked suspicious. He immediately brought his German Shepherd over to the ice cream, but I said, Dad, won't Zeus die if he eats chocolate? He didn't answer. Zeus started smelling the ice cream and instantly started barking. Everyone was scared. He was going crazy, and the ice cream man came running out. Hey, what are you doing? Zeus was growling. I need my ice cream back, but my dad warned him. Stay right there. What did you put in that ice cream? But in that second, he ran for it. He tried to grab the tub, but my dad let go of Zeus' collar. Dad instantly grabbed all us kids and covered our eyes, but I could hear Zeus ripping him to shreds. They took the ice cream man to jail, and since I found out what he was planning to do to us, I can never eat ice cream again. My teacher shouted out, Alex isn't your real name. Tell us what it is. But she doesn't understand. I'm in witness protection. It says here you go by Alex. She looked up at me. But your legal name is different. I felt ice flood my veins. The marshals had set everything up. New city, new school, new name, new life. They told me the school had had been briefed. They told me my records were flagged. They told me I was safe. I asked her to please just call me Alex. She shook her head. I use legal names in my classroom. None of this nickname nonsense. If your parents wanted you to be called Alex, they would have named you Alex. My parents were dead, killed by the people I testified against, shot in our driveway while I hid in the closet and listened. That's why I was here. That's why I was Alex. That's why I could never be who I used to be ever again. I tried again. It's really important. I can't explain why, but I need you to trust me. She didn't even look up from her roster. I've been teaching for 22 years. I've heard every excuse. I go by my middle name. My parents call me something different. I'm finding myself. She made air quotes. School is preparation for the real world. In the real world, you use your legal name. A boy in the back row muttered something about it being the first day. Ms. Halverson ignored him. She ran her finger down the attendance sheet until she found my entry. Your real name is... I stood up so fast my chair scraped against the floor. Please, don't. She looked at me like I was being dramatic, like I was another teenager trying to make things difficult. She had no idea. She couldn't have any idea. But she also didn't care enough to wonder why I looked like I was about to throw up. She read it anyway. My full legal name. Benedict Rowe Calder. First, middle, last. I know it's a dumb name, but it's the one connected to a federal case that made national news. The one that got my family killed. The one I was never supposed to hear again as long as I lived. 30 students now knew exactly who I was. The room went silent. A few kids were already reaching for their phones. Any one of them could Google me. Any one of them could post it. Any one of them could tell someone who would tell someone who would tell the people still looking for me. 3 years of hiding, gone in 4 seconds. Ms. Halverson smiled like she'd won something. See? That wasn't so hard. Now, moving on, the classroom door flew open. A man in a dark suit walked in. I'd never seen him before, but I recognized the look. The way he scanned the room. The way his hand stayed near his hip. The way his eyes found me. Then found Ms. Halverson and went cold. He pulled out a badge. U.S. Marshals. Ms. Halverson's face went white. He walked toward her desk with the kind of calm that's more terrifying than yelling. That student is under federal witness protection. The name you just read out loud is sealed by court order. You have potentially compromised an active federal investigation and endangered the life of a protected witness. Her mouth opened. Nothing came out. I didn't know, because you didn't ask. He took the roster from her desk. There's a flag in the system, bright red. Impossible to miss if you'd bothered to look, but you didn't look. You just decided you knew better than the federal government about what name to use for a 16-year-old kid. He turned to me. His voice softened, but his eyes didn't. Get your things. We need to move. Now. I grabbed my backpack. I hadn't even unpacked it yet. I walked toward the door without looking at anyone. A girl in the front row whispered, "I'm sorry," as I passed. I didn't answer. I couldn't. In the hallway, the marshal was already on his phone. "We have a breach. Full relocation protocol. Yes, today. Right now." I followed him to a black SUV parked in the fire lane. A woman I'd never met was in the driver's seat with the engine running. I got in the back. The marshal got in beside me. The car started moving before my door was fully closed. "New documents will be ready by tonight," he said. "New city by tomorrow. New school by Monday." I nodded. I'd done this before. I'd do it again. He looked at me. "I'm sorry. This shouldn't have happened. You can thank your blockhead of a teacher." I gave my class 5 minutes to confess, or they were all getting suspended. I was bluffing. I'd spotted what looked like a mango vape in the hallway trash between periods. Our school cameras hadn't worked in years, and I figured scaring them was the fastest way to find out who it belonged to. I locked the door, slammed my hands on my desk to sell it, and told them the principal already knew what one of them did. My star student knocked over her pumpkin spice latte. "What do you mean suspended?" 4 minutes and 30 seconds. Silence. Then Adam, one of my nerdiest students, shot up so fast his chair crashed to the floor behind him. "Okay, I'll confess. I've been stealing clothes from the lost and found in the staff room when no one's looking and reselling all of it on eBay. I use the money to buy Pokemon cards." Layla screamed. "You've been stealing from lost and found?" Adam whipped around on her. "Shut up, Layla. Your family should be locked up. You're not even enrolled in this school. You're supposed to be at Westbrook, but you won't go there because it's more dangerous." Layla sat down and didn't say another word. None of this was what I was looking for. 3 minutes. That's when Abigail, the quiet girl who'd been in a wheelchair since September, grabbed both armrests and stood up. For the first time, ever. The room gasped so hard it felt like the air got sucked out. "I can't do this anymore. I'm not disabled. I don't have autism. I've been faking it since September because I didn't want to run in PE." Someone shrieked, "You've been in a wheelchair for 4 months. I play soccer 3 times a week outside of school. I just hate the coach here." Adam was shaking now. "We did a fundraiser for you. We raised $800 and gave it to you. Where is it?" Abigail didn't answer that. I was gripping my desk so hard my knuckles hurt because this had gone so far past what I expected that I didn't know what to do anymore. 2 minutes. The linebacker in the back row swallowed hard. "If we're all confessing, then I guess it's my turn. Remember when Mr. Holloway got fired last year for having fentanyl in his locker? Nobody moved. Nobody breathed. Did you plant that?" I whispered. He nodded. He gave me a D on every paper. I just wanted him gone. I didn't think he'd actually get fired. Adam screamed, "You ended a man's career. You're running a black market out of the lost and found." 2 kids pulled out their phones. "This needs to be filmed. I'd walked in here looking for a vape, and now I was sitting on theft, enrollment fraud, insurance fraud, and destroying an innocent teacher's career." Then Josh in the corner raised his hand. "I've been living in the ceiling." I stared at him. "The ceiling? My parents think I'm at boarding school. I just come here. Time's up," Mia sobbed. "What else could there possibly be?" I reached into to my desk and held up the vape. Dead silence, every mouth shut. Abigail, still standing next to her empty wheelchair, squinted at it from across the room. "Sir, I don't think that's a vape." I looked down at it, turned it over slowly in my hands, read the small print on the side. It was an inhaler. I stared at it for a long time, then looked up at my class full of criminals and said, "My bad." Nobody laughed. I put the inhaler in my pocket and picked up the phone to call the principal for real this time. My daughter begged me to put Christmas lights up, and even though it was snowy and cold out, I told her I would. I didn't see the ice, and when I climbed up, she passed me the lights and smiled. But right before we were almost finished, the ladder slipped out from underneath me. I fell and hit my head on the concrete hard, and remember the sound of her screaming. Then everything went black. I didn't wake up until I was in the hospital later that day, and felt the worst pain in my neck and back. I tried to feel for the bandages on my head, but strangely, I didn't feel anything. I was really confused, but barely managed to sit up, and noticed I couldn't move my legs. I looked up and saw a nurse walk in the room, and she looked really surprised. 5 more people came in, and all started asking me questions. I was really worried because I still couldn't move my feet no matter how hard I tried. I didn't know what was going on until an hour later when my wife finally got there. I was so happy to see her, and didn't think anything about her in tears. I asked who the girl she was with was because she was also crying, and when she walked closer, I made the most shocking realization of my life. This 13-year-old was my daughter, and they broke the news I was in a coma for almost 9 years. I realized I had missed her entire childhood. I was paralyzed. My wife had remarried. But what hurt the most was when I went home to our house, and I saw those Christmas lights were still up. My friend brought 2 watermelons to school on Monday because he just really loved watermelon. But the principal immediately stopped him and yelled, "What do you plan on doing with this?" My friend said, "Nothing, I just like watermelon." And the principal didn't believe him and made him throw them away. That's when we realized something. Ever since our principal banned senior pranks and said we'd all fail if anyone tried one, he'd been so paranoid that he'd confiscate anything that looked suspicious, even if we did nothing with it. By Tuesday, word had spread, and every senior brought a watermelon. 300 watermelons flooding the hallways. The principal was sprinting between classrooms, and by noon, he made an announcement that all watermelons had to be thrown away immediately. We did. Then Wednesday, we switched it up. We brought buckets, and the principal completely lost it. He was storming through the hallways, grabbing buckets out of people's hands, yelling, "I said no senior pranks." But Friday was the trap. It was 95 degrees outside, and we knew he couldn't resist. Every senior walked in carrying a gallon jug of water. The principal's voice came over the intercom, absolutely furious, saying all water would be confiscated immediately. At lunch, teachers went table to table taking every jug. Phones came out immediately. Everyone posted that our principal was denying us water in 95-degree heat and tagged news stations. Before final bell, 4 news vans pulled up outside. I watched the principal get dragged outside by the reporters as they questioned him. "Why are you denying water in this heat? Are you trying to kill them?" He tried explaining, but it looked so bad that he had to resign on the spot. I found out why the McDonald's
Hey, man, I gotta be 7. Do you know where I can take this? Excuse me, oh my God. Anybody order a kidney or liver or whatever this is? Anybody? It seems like it's kind of important.
Hey, you got time for another run?
No, I'm wrapped up for the...
It's outside the zone, so it pays double.
I could do that. Sweetheart, I'm sorry, this is
Why is this a 2-minute ad? Why is this a 2-minute ad, bro?
Michelle, please do not go stay with freaking Katie.
It also hurts my feelings that you don't even care enough to come home and have this conversation.
Seriously, I'm working.
I don't want to watch a trailer, bro.
This could be some 8-year-old boy's heart or someone's mom's brain.
Finally.
ice cream machine is always broken, and it got me fired. My first week there, I kept having to tell customers it was broken. Their faces would drop every single time, especially the kids who just wanted a cone after their happy meal. It had been broken for 2 months according to my coworkers, who just shrugged and said that's how it always was. I used to fix equipment at my uncle's restaurant all the time. Fryers, drink machines, even refrigeration units. So when it was slow on a Tuesday afternoon, I decided to take a look. The manager, Karen, was off that day, and the shift supervisor told me to go for it. The machine wasn't that complicated once I got the panels off. The main issue was a clogged valve and some sensors that needed cleaning. Years of dried milk product had gunked up the works. I spent 3 hours taking it apart and cleaning everything with the approved sanitizer. My coworkers started gathering around. Kaylee, who had been there 5 years, said she'd never seen anyone even try to fix it. Jason started taking bets on whether I'd get it working. Even customers at the counter were watching like I was performing surgery. When I finally hit the power button, the machine hummed to life. All green lights for the first time in months. I ran a test batch, and out came perfect perfect soft-serve vanilla. The whole crew erupted. Word spread through the restaurant, and customers who had been turned away came back for ice cream. We sold more cones and McFlurries in 2 hours than the store usually sold in a week. Kids were finally getting their desserts. Employees didn't have to deal with disappointed customers anymore. I felt like a hero. Co-workers kept saying I should get a raise. One older lady bought an extra cone just to thank me. I went home that night proud of myself for taking initiative and solving a problem that had plagued the store for months. The next morning, Karen was waiting for me in the office. She handed me a termination notice before I could even clock in. "You tampered with the ice cream machine." I tried explaining that I fixed it, and customers were happy, and we were selling ice cream again. She pulled out a thick manual and cut me off. Turns out McDonald's doesn't own those Taylor ice cream machines. They lease them with a strict contract that says only certified Taylor technicians can do repairs. By fixing it myself, I violated the lease agreement and potentially voided the warranty. Corporate could fine the franchise owner thousands of dollars. There were liability issues if someone got sick from ice cream made by a machine repaired by a non-certified person. It didn't matter that I'd done everything correctly and the machine was working perfectly. My co-workers tried to defend me. Kaylee told Karen I was just trying to help. Jason pointed out how much money we'd made. Karen wouldn't budge. Rules were rules. She made me work those final 2 weeks, which was awkward for everyone. The ice cream machine kept working perfectly the whole time, which somehow made it worse. Every cone we sold reminded everyone I was getting fired for doing something helpful. On my last day, the crew pooled together and bought me a card and a gift certificate to Burger King as a joke. Except it wasn't really a joke because I actually applied at the Burger King down the street. During my interview, I told the manager why I'd been let go from McDonald's. He laughed so hard he almost fell out of his chair. I got the job. Time to stop working for a clown and start working for a king. When my daughter rushed out to catch the bus in the morning, she accidentally left her iPad on the couch. But the second I saw it, she had ChatGPT open. Why would a 9-year-old be using AI? But then I read what it said on the screen. The app replied, "I can't provide detailed instructions on how to make a bomb." I couldn't believe what I was seeing and instantly started scrolling. She was actually typing this. "How do I make a bomb that everyone at school will love? How can I sneak a bomb to school?" I felt like I couldn't breathe. I thought her backpack did feel heavy this morning, so I ran to her room and threw open the door. She had baking soda, citric acid, and I was horrified. I called her school. "Hello? Have you seen my daughter? Has she been acting strange today?" She could hear the panic in my voice. "Well, actually, yes. She kept talking about having something big to show all of her friends today. She brought her backpack outside and wouldn't let anyone touch it. Said she had a surprise for them. But the second I told her about what I saw, she gasped. Oh my God, our school got an anonymous threat a month ago." She started calling the police, and I knew I had to get there fast. I bolted to my car, but the second I pulled into the parking lot, there were police cars, SWAT cars, and I saw them in the playground surrounding my daughter. She was holding her backpack with all her friends around, all of them crying because they were so scared. They yelled, "Drop the bag and step away." And when I tried to get closer, she finally saw me. She screamed, "Daddy," and tried to run to me, but an officer grabbed her arm. "Sir, stay back. That's my daughter. She's 9 years old." They slammed me to the ground. "No, please. She's just a kid." But when I looked back up, they were grabbing her. The officer grabbed the backpack and looked terrified as started unzipping it. All of the police officers ducked, ready to see him explode. But when he opened it, a bunch of glitter fell out. "Wait, what? Honey, did you put a bomb in your bag?" "Yeah, I spent all night making it." And when I looked back, it hit me. She meant bath bombs. When my parents wanted to leave me home alone for the first time, I begged them to stay. I was only 9, but Dad just gave me an axe and told me I could use it if anyone broke in. He thought it was hilarious, but I was terrified. And 2 minutes after they left, I heard something. I could hear something ripping, but I told myself it was nothing. I was fine. I had to be fine. I was definitely not fine. I heard the back door smash and knew someone was in my house. I was praying it was my dad pranking me, but when I peeked around the corner, I saw him. Someone was robbing my house. I didn't have a phone downstairs, and I literally started panicking. I had no idea what to do. I couldn't just wait for him to come downstairs. But then I saw it. I didn't have time to think, so I moved. I carried the heavy thing up the stairs, and when I saw him, he was taking my PS5. Now I knew this was serious. He had his back turned to me, so I creeped up to him as slowly as I could, but then I noticed the gun. If he saw me, he'd shoot me. I was about to swing, but thought, wait, if I kill him, will I go to juvie? But then he started turning. He heard me, and I watched him start to look behind him. And in that moment, I screamed as loud as I could and just threw the axe at him. It smashed into the TV next to him. He instantly gasped and grabbed his chest and could barely stand up. I scared him so bad he started hyperventilating, and I could tell he was having a heart attack, so I stole my phone back and called 911. I think that was his last break-in. A bald man sat down at my barbershop, and I thought he was pranking me. His bald wife was in a wheelchair with him, but when I asked him what he was doing, I realized this wasn't a prank at all. He asked me to lean down, and his story completely broke my heart. He told me a few years ago his wife started acting strange, and they soon found out she had a brain tumor. However, by the time they caught it, the damage was already done. She was only 28 and started slowly losing her memory. She had now forgotten who he was and had lost her hair from the treatment. He had just shaved his head to support her, but as soon as she heard the hair clipper, it was like something sparked in her brain, and it was almost like she recognized him. He asked if I could just pretend to cut his hair, even if it had the slightest chance to bring her back for just a second. I told him, of course, and got one of our spare wigs from the back. I helped wheel her over, and it seemed like she genuinely didn't know where she was. I turned on the hair clipper, and we both waited for something to happen. She just sat there looking at the floor, but the second I started cutting the wig, I watched magic happen. Her eyes immediately shot open, and she started to look around. Then, she looked up at her husband for a few seconds. I knew there was something happening. Then, she quietly whispered his name. We both started tearing up. She kept repeating his name a few times and asked if he was getting his hair cut. He burst out crying because this was the first time she remembered him in years. She went back to being tired, but weeks later he came back and tried to give me $5,000. He told me she passed away that morning, but because of me, he got to feel her presence one last time before she passed. I told him to keep it, but the next morning, I found it on my chair. I woke up at 2 a.m. to the sound of the married couple in my neighboring apartment yelling. I heard the woman screeching, "Stop!" I thought about calling the police, but right as I picked up my phone, my doorbell rang. I knew I didn't have time to answer the door. She was in danger, but they were banging now. I opened it and saw her. She immediately came inside, limping, and I knew what he did. I told her to go hide in my bathroom, but it wasn't over. Her husband noticed the red trail leading to my apartment and started banging on the door. I told him the police were coming, but the second I did, I heard him back up. He started charging into the door and eventually knocked it off his hinges, and I watched as the entire thing broke down. What he didn't know was what sport I played my entire life. So as soon as he broke in, I was ready. He charged at me, and I swung. He collapsed, and I told him to get out. I didn't want to hurt him, but when I saw him reaching for something, my heart started racing. I saw him reach into his pocket, and just as he pulled out that revolver, I swung again. It was ruled as self-defense. I got put under anesthesia, but I was awake the whole time and heard something I shouldn't have. I felt the needle go into me, but after my body went limp, I was still wide awake. Then the nurse asked the doctor how much my life insurance policy was worth. He took out a sheet of paper and said, "It depends how he dies." Everyone turned to face me as they could hear my monitor beating faster. The nurse said I was probably just dreaming. Dr. Carpenter told her to increase the sedative. I focused everything on trying to move my left hand. Nothing. I tried again. Nothing. I could hear them prepping the syringe. My finger twitched, once, barely visible. That's when I heard my wife's voice in the room. "I think he's awake," she whispered like she was horrified. My whole hand lifted off the table. The nurse said that wasn't possible. My wife gasped, "This can't be happening. I already put a deposit on a new house." I opened my eyes. Dr. Carpenter was standing over me with the syringe filled with venom. I couldn't speak, but I could move my arm. I pointed at the security camera on the ceiling, the one connected to the hospital's cloud server, the one they forgot about. My wife looked up just as the door burst open. The hospital had been monitoring the surgical feed remotely. They heard everything. They arrested her in front of everyone, and she resisted so much that they had to sedate her. My gym teacher kept dying and coming back to life. We were in gym class when he collapsed for the first time. In seconds, he was throwing up, and when he was done, he lay completely still on the floor. My dad's an EMT, so I knew how to check his pulse and his breath. He was clinically dead. Suddenly, the emo kid of our class shoved me out of the way. He huddled around the gym teacher, and none of us could see what he was doing. But after a few seconds, our gym teacher stood up like nothing happened. "Sorry guys, I've just been feeling sleepy today," he exclaimed before blowing his whistle to get us to do more push-ups. None of us knew what was going on, and we were all too scared to ask. But the next day, it happened again, and the week after that. Every time, the emo kid was the one to save him. It made no sense, and the school refused to acknowledge what was going on. Rumors started spreading that the emo kid was the one causing it. Turns out he was dating the gym teacher's daughter before she took her own life, and people were saying that he blamed her dad for what happened. I started paying closer attention to the emo kid after that. He carried a black duffel bag everywhere and never let anyone touch it. After school, once I saw the gym teacher shoving the emo kid against a locker. "Stop doing this to me, or I will have you expelled." The emo kid just stood there. I honestly thought he was being blackmailed, and I was ready to report him. But on Tuesday, everything changed. We were in gym class, same as always, when the gym teacher collapsed. But this time, the emo kid wasn't there. I tried to save him like my dad taught me, but it didn't work. The paramedics showed up and tried to bring him back to life, but they ended up declaring him as dead. A week later, the emo kid finally told us what happened in the school group chat. Turns out, the gym teacher teacher was trying to stop his own heart on purpose so he could visit his dead daughter who ended her life. And the emo kid was the only one who knew what he was doing, and he had a special syringe with a remedy that brought him back to life every time. Except that day, the emo kid was too sick to come to school, and the gym teacher ended his life. I was in the women's restroom spray painting "Gary sucks" across the wall in big sloppy red letters. Then I dropped the can on the floor and walked out with my hands in my pockets. 20 minutes later, my desk phone rang, and my boss Gary's voice came through. "Come to my office, and I would hurry up if I were you." I smirked and took my sweet time walking over. When I opened the door, there was a cop
Yeah?
right next to Gary's desk. I sat down across from them, still smiling. "So what's going on?" Gary leaned forward. "You went into the women's restroom and spray painted my name on the wall." I nodded calmly as he pointed at the officer next to me and told me he's here to walk me out of this building in handcuffs for committing 2 crimes. "How'd you know it was me?" I asked. He said a woman saw me coming out of the restroom and reported it. My eyebrows scrunched together. "That's weird because I checked every stall and they were all empty. And the whole floor was in the 2 o'clock meeting." Gary shook his head. "There's a lot of people in this building. You can't account for everyone. Someone saw you." I sat up straight. "Yeah, you saw me. On your illegal cameras in the women's bathroom." Gary's eyes went wide. Then he stuttered out something about not knowing what I was talking about and how that was a ridiculous accusation. The officer looked between us, not knowing who to believe. I walked right past Gary's desk to the cabinet behind him and swung it open. There were 4 small screens showing 4 different bathroom feeds, all recording. On the second screen, 2 women were washing their hands right now. I turned around and looked at Gary. Yeah, Gary really does suck. Gary stood up slowly and asked the officer if they could keep this between them. The officer cuffed him instead. When my mom found out she was pregnant with me, my dad suddenly disappeared while she was sleeping that night. He left her with all the bills to pay and now a child to take care of by herself in New York. She was really stressed and, as a last resort, applied for a random job downtown. This would have made her a lot of money, and when they asked her for an interview, she knew this was literally her only chance. She went to bed early, but for some reason, the power went out in our building that night. She woke up really late the next morning and started trying to rush to the train station. She sprinted down there while pregnant and literally missed the train by a few seconds. She panicked and called to ask if she could come later, but they just told her if she couldn't show up on time, they'd never hire a lazy slob like her. She was so stressed out, she just went home and cried before falling asleep. But 4 hours later, she woke up to someone pounding on her door and opened it to see my aunt crying her eyes out. She instantly hugged Mom and was so worried because she wasn't answering her phone. "I thought you were dead." Since the power went out in our building that morning, my mom was late for her interview that day, and she wasn't in the tower when the planes hit. The girl's mother woke her and her brother up at 5 in the morning, yelling at them because someone ate the candy in her room. Her and her brother looked at each other confused because neither one of them ate the candy, but the mom called them liars and made them stand in a corner until she got an answer. For 3 hours, neither one said anything, which only made their mom more furious. So she went to the kitchen, got a tub of salt and 2 glasses of water, making the 2 of them each drink a glass until they vomited all the candy. Both the girl and her brother drank the water, and they both puked because the salt water burned them. Even when the mom looked through the vomit with a stick, there was still no evidence that either one ate the candy. But the mom wouldn't stop there. She took the girl's bed and dragged it through the house, scraping the floor, to throw it outside. She said, "If no one will admit it, then you both are sleeping outside." Just as she got the bed to the door, their father came home from the night shift. When he asked what was going on, the mom told him they were raising thieves, but the father fully admitted that he was the one who ate the candy. When the mom realized this, she knew she was getting divorced soon. After 5 years of negative pregnancy tests, my wife and I adopted a 9-year-old boy named Lucas. He was small for his age and said, "Thank you," after every single thing. My wife said we needed to make him feel welcomed, so we gave him his own room, went shopping to decorate it, and had
Oh my gosh. Dude, I feel like I've been streaming for it feels like
him join movie.
It feels like I've been streaming for an hour, guys. Oh my gosh, it feels like I've been streaming for an hour. Dude, I'm about to fall asleep.
But all his decorations stayed in the bags. He sat far from us on the couch, and he'd be silent for hours. So I started dragging him along on errands just to get him talking. Our first stop was grocery shopping. I told Lucas he could pick a few things he liked, but he stared at me like I had 2 heads. I told him again, and he ran off. I thought he'd come back with candy and chips. Instead, he loaded the cart with tissue boxes. I asked him, "Why so many tissues?" and he shrugged. He asked me to bring the cart to the tissue aisle so he could grab more boxes. I I crouched down and asked him, "Hey buddy, why so many tissues?" He froze, then shrugged and said, "Expensive tissues are much better." I almost let it go. Then he mumbled something about them being sweet. What? Lucas kept looking at the floor and fidgeting with his hands. I told him nothing bad was going to happen if he answered my question. I used to eat them when we didn't have food at the orphanage. The expensive ones taste sweet. My heart stopped. I told him he would never have to do that again. "I'm going to feed you so much real food, you're gonna get sick of it." Lucas looked at me with his big puppy brown eyes. "Is that true?" I hugged him right there and repeated that it was true. "Okay, but can I still get one box for when I miss it?" I nodded. To this day, that tissue box sits on a shelf in his room, unopened. I was walking through my neighborhood when I saw my crush's house was on fire. I froze. When I was 9, a house fire killed my dad and left me with a scar stretching across my entire back. I barely remember his face, just his hands pulling me out before the roof collapsed on him. I stared at the flames and every part of me said, "Turn away," but she was inside. My body moved on its own, and I sprinted in without thinking. Smoke was everywhere, and the heat hit my back and burned my scar. I ran through the living room, but nobody was there. Then I heard a scream from upstairs, a scream I'd recognize anywhere. I took the stairs 3 at a time. A giant wooden beam was blocking the door the scream was coming from. It burned and blistered my hands, but I shoved it aside. I found her curled on the floor, screaming, crying, and clutching a photo frame against her chest. "I'm here, Caitlin," I yelled. "I've got you." I scooped her up. She held on to me with one arm, holding the photo frame against her chest in the other. "Hold with both, or else I might drop you," I told her. But she shook her head. "It's my dad. It's all I have of him." I held her even tighter. I'd lost my dad too. I carried her down the stairs. She trembled the whole way and kept calling me her hero. We ran out the front door. The second her feet touched the ground, she grabbed my face and kissed me. "I love you. I've loved you for so long. You're my hero." It was the exact thing I'd been dreaming about for years. But then out the corner of my eye, I saw the photo frame she'd been holding, and my stomach turned. I pulled away. She asked what was wrong, but I felt too sick to speak, because the photo she was holding wasn't just any photo. It showed the man she'd called her dad, hoisting a little girl onto his shoulders. They were standing in front of the same house that was still burning behind me, but that's not what made me sick. It was the man's hands. They were the same hands that pulled me out of my fire 8 years ago. It hit me. My dad had a second family. I looked back at my crush, into her eyes, and realized the girl I'd spent years chasing, had just saved from a burning building, and had just passionately kissed, was my half-sister. They called me Dead Boy because I smiled when I bled. Before the pit, I was the most boring person at my high school. Not shy, not awkward, just empty. Teachers forgot my answers before I finished talking. Girls looked through me like I was made of glass. I ate lunch alone for 2.5 years, and not a single person ever asked to sit with me. I wasn't sad about it. That was the scary part. I felt nothing about anything. I didn't want friends. I didn't want hobbies. I wanted to feel something. Anything. Even if it was pain. That's the headspace I was in when I found out about the pit. Underground fights every Friday behind the old Walmart. No refs. No rules. Just 2 kids beating each other while rich kids bet their parents money. I went to watch. I left with a split lip and $300. And for the first time in my life, I felt alive. My first opponent was a kid named Darius. Won 6 fights in a row. Biceps the size of my head. The organizer Bruce looked at me like I was already dead. "You sure? Darius doesn't stop when you tap." Good. The fight started, and he hit me so hard my vision went white. I hit the ground, tasted concrete and blood. The crowd was laughing, but I got up. He hit me again. I got up again. By the 4th time, nobody was laughing. Darius was breathing hard. I was smiling with blood in my teeth. "You done?" I asked. He hesitated. That's when I learned the secret. Fighting isn't about being stronger. It's about wanting it more. And nobody wanted it more than someone who had nothing else. I caught him with a right hook while he was catching his breath. Bruce had to pull me off. Word spread fast. The kid who wouldn't stay down. The kid who smiled when he bled. Dead Boy. By week 12, I was 12-0. Kids from other schools came just to watch. Then Victor showed up. A legend. Graduated 2 years ago. Undefeated at 14-0 when he left. Rumor was he put someone in a coma once. Rumor was he came back specifically because of me. Because I was about to break his record. Bruce hyped it for weeks. $2,000 to the winner. Biggest pot in pit history. The night of the fight, I couldn't even get close to the warehouse. Cars everywhere. Older guys with face tattoos. Girls filming for their Finstas. Victor was already in the circle when I got there. Shirtless. Covered in tattoos. Looking at me like I was a bug. "You're the one who smiles." "Yeah. Let's see if you're still smiling when I'm done." First 2 minutes he destroyed me. Professional level combos. I went down 3 times. Crowd got quiet. Bruce stopped taking bets. But I kept getting up. Every single time. And every time I did, Victor's face changed. Confusion. Frustration. Then fear. "Why won't you stay down?" I spit blood onto the concrete. "Because I don't know how." He charged at me sloppy and angry. Angry fighters make mistakes. He threw a wild right hook. I slipped it. Countered with everything I had. Caught him right on the jaw. Then I didn't stop until Bruce pulled me off. Victor wasn't moving. Then he groaned and looked up at me with pure hate. "Rematch." "No," I said. "I'm retired. The crowd erupted. Bruce handed me $2,000 cash. Kids were chanting "Dead Boy." I walked out of that warehouse a legend and straight into flashing lights. Cops everywhere. Undercover had been watching for weeks. Bruce got arrested. I told the detective I just came to watch. He looked at my bloody face and said, "Get out of here, kid." I walked home with $2,000 in my waistband. Senior year, I went back to being nobody. We had a gang that was terrorizing our school for years. They'd bully kids, harass girls, and all the teachers were terrified. But one day, they picked on this kid Brian from the school play. He shoved him, but when Brian turned around, he snapped. He hit him hard twice, completely knocking him out. Everyone was stunned, but applauded. The teachers pretended like they didn't see, but this was only the beginning. The gang was gonna come for him. They stalked him, and everyone knew what was coming. Soon, the next toughest dude in the gang started a fight with him, but Brian acted like he didn't want to fight. He tried to walk away, but when the lowlife slapped him, it was on. Again, Brian squared up, and in 2 punches took him down before they could break up the fight. The entire cafeteria was silent. The guards ran over, but even they were stunned. But again, the school did nothing about it. Brian had now taken out 2 of the 3 toughest guys in the gang. The rest of them were just followers who wouldn't actually do anything. Everyone knew the leader, Jack, would come for him now. We were walking to class when I heard Jack yell for him, and they just stared each other down. Brian knew it was coming. Everyone was watching in fear of what was gonna happen. He might have brought a weapon, maybe worse. But then Brian cracked his knuckles. They ran at each other, and Jack hit him a few times and ended up knocking him down. He cocked his first back, and everyone flinched as we thought Brian was done. But then, just as Jack went in for the knockout, Brian turned around and swung the cleanest uppercut I've ever seen in my life. It was so solid it knocked Jack straight back to the ground, and when he tried to get back up, he fell over again. Everyone just stood there, and out of nowhere, they all started cheering. The kid from the school play took down the entire gang. It was beautiful. I was looking out the window on Christmas Day when my sister got on her knees behind me, hands clawing at her throat, and there was blood on her lips. I saw she'd swallowed a coin, and I shoved my fingers down her throat trying to get it out. That's when Mom grabbed my arm with an extremely strong grip and said, "Stop it." My sister went limp for a second, and I thought she was gone, but then she gasped. I sprinted up the stairs to get my phone and call the ambulance, and had just made it to my bedroom door when my dad stepped in front of the doorway and blocked me. I stumbled, but caught myself and ran back to my sister. I got my fingers in her mouth again, reached for the coin, almost had it. Then my mom came out of nowhere and her elbow slammed into my arm. I felt the coin slip deeper. My sister's breathing turned into this horrible wet rattling sound. I was crying now. "Please, please just help me. Your daughter is going to die." My dad grabbed me by the shoulders and dragged me away from my sister. My sister wasn't breathing anymore. I started CPR, screaming her name, pounding on her little chest. It was only when she went completely still that my mom finally called 911, and as soon as the paramedics arrived, my parents started crying their eyes out, holding each other, performing grief like actors in a movie. Dad told them, "We tried everything. It happened so fast." They pronounced my sister dead at 7:34 a.m. on Christmas morning. I later found out that my parents had planted the coin there because they knew my sister's life insurance policy would pay out $500,000 for an accidental death. I kneeled on broken glass to apologize for dropping a cup. Elena screamed. She grabbed my arms and yanked me to my feet, blood already beading on my knees from the shards. Her son Kaloy dropped his fork and stared at me. "Dude, it's a mug. Why are you on the floor?" I couldn't speak, couldn't breathe, couldn't do anything but shake. Elena's voice went soft. "Sweetheart, what did you think was going to happen? 3 hours earlier, Kaloy had invited me over after school. I almost said no. The night before, I forgot to take out the trash. My mom found me in my room at 6:01. She didn't yell. She never yelled. She just grabbed my arm and walked me to the kitchen. Uncooked rice scattered across the cold tile. "Kneel," I dropped, and the grains dug into my kneecaps like tiny needles. She set the microwave timer for 20 minutes. "If you shift, I restart it." I didn't shift. I learned not to shift a long time ago. Tears ran down my face, but I didn't make a sound. When the timer finally beeped, she crouched down and wiped my cheeks with her thumb. This is how a good mother loves her son. The world will be much crueler than me. That was just for forgetting the trash. When I got a B on a test, she made me stand outside in the sun for 3 hours. Doors locked, no water, neighbors walking by, pretending not to see. But Kaloy kept asking me to come over, so I finally said yes. His mom Elena opened the door before we could knock. "You must be Kaloy's friend. Come in, come in." I made lumpia. The house smelled like garlic and fried food, and something sweet baking in the oven, not like cigarette smoke and cheap wine. I didn't know houses could smell like this. A few minutes later, Kaloy tripped over their cat. 2 glasses of juice shattered across the hardwood. I hit the floor before the glass stopped moving, hands scrambling to pick up the shards with my bare fingers, already apologizing. I'm sorry, I'm so sorry, please don't. But Elena just knelt beside me and took my hands. Honey, stop, you'll cut yourself. No anger, no timer, no rice. Kaloy laughed and grabbed a mop. My bad, Mom. She ruffled his hair. It's just juice, baby. At dinner, I reached for a third lumpia and froze, arm hovering over the plate, waiting for the slap. Elena pushed the whole plate toward me. Eat! Your skin and bones! When Kaloy mentioned he got a C in English, I braced for the explosion. Elena just sighed. We'll find you a tutor. These things happen. I kept waiting for the real version of her to come out. The version that punished. The version that taught lessons with pain. But she just kept smiling, kept offering seconds, kept treating mistakes like they were nothing. That's when I reached for my glass and knocked over her favorite mug. The one Kaloy gave her for Mother's Day. World's okayest mom. It shattered against the tile, and my body took over. I dropped straight to my knees, onto the broken pieces. Elena yanked me up, and I couldn't stop crying. Not just tears, ugly, heaving sobs that shook my whole body. Why are you so scared? She whispered. What did you think I was going to do to you? So I told her. The rice, the sun, the locked doors, the timer, all of it. Her face went through something I'd never seen on a grown-up before. Horror, then rage, then something soft and completely shattered. She pulled me into a hug, and I felt warm for the first time I could remember. How many times? Too many to count. She held me for a long moment. Then she stood up, walked to the counter, and picked up her phone. Hello? I need to report child abuse. My sister called me to chat about our grandmother's lasagna recipe. That was our code for I've been kidnapped. When we were kids, our mom was paranoid about abductions. She made us memorize codes in case one of us was ever taken. Grandmother's lasagna meant I'm in danger, but I can't talk freely. Uncle Roy's cabin meant trace this call. Cousin B's wedding meant there's more than one person. The dog got out meant I don't know where I am. We thought she was crazy, practiced the codes like a joke at the dinner table, never once thinking we'd actually use them. I was at work when my sister Margot called, voice bright and cheerful like nothing was wrong. Hey, I was just thinking about grandmother's lasagna recipe. Do you remember it? My blood went cold. Both of our parents were only children. We never had a grandmother. I signaled to my coworker to call 911 and kept my voice calm. Oh yeah, grandma's lasagna. What made you think of it? I was thinking about making it for Uncle Roy. You know how he loves it up at the cabin. Trace this call. I scribbled a note. They need to trace this now. How's the weather out there? Oh, you know, same as always. Hey, did you hear about Cousin B's wedding? There's more than one person. I heard a man's voice in the background. Who are you talking to? Just my brother catching up. Put it on speaker. You're on speaker now. Say hi to my friend. I said hi and kept talking about the fake recipe like my sister wasn't in mortal danger. I heard a second voice. Another man. My coworker showed me a note from police. Keep her talking. Need more time. Hey, did you ever find that dog? Mom said the dog got out. Do you know where you are? Margot paused. No, still looking for him. She didn't know. One of the men said something about wrapping this up. Then Margot said, remember that time we went to the place with the red barn? The one off exit 34? We never went anywhere with a red barn. She was telling me where she was. I scribbled exit 34 red barn. Police confirmed there was an abandoned farm off exit 34, 25 minutes away. Okay, that's enough. Hang up now. Wait, I have to tell him about Mom's birthday party. It's at 3, right? Or was it 4? I looked at my watch. 2:15. She was telling me something was happening at 3. It's at 3. Don't be late. Okay, love you. The phone went dead. Police were 20 minutes away. I was 15. I drove faster than I've ever driven in my life, blowing through red lights with my hands shaking on the wheel. I pulled up to the farm at 2:52. White van by a falling down barn. Through a dirty window, I could see my sister in a chair with her hands behind her back. I called 911. They said stay in my car. Units were 3 minutes out, shouting inside the building at 2:56. Police arrived at 2:58. More shouting. Then 2 gunshots. They breached the building. An officer came out and said they had her. She was alive. At the hospital, she grabbed my hand. I knew you'd come. I just had to stay alive until 3. Our mom passed away 5 years ago. I called her crazy my whole childhood for making us memorize those codes. I don't anymore. My students kept killing every plant in sight, so I brought in one that fights back. My students started destroying every plant at school, and I didn't care until they went after Mrs. Brooks. I found her sobbing in her classroom holding pieces of a broken pot. That plant was the one last thing she had from her mother before she passed away last month. She pulled out a resignation letter and said, I can't do this anymore. They win. Even though I saw Marcus cut up someone's bonsai tree last week, I couldn't prove it. I'm genetically immune to poison ivy, and I grow it along my back fence to keep neighbor kids out of my yard. That night, I potted 3 poison ivy plants and brought them to school the next morning with a massive red sign. Danger. Do not touch poisonous plants. The next morning, Marcus walked into class and walked up to my desk, practically drooling. Yo, Mr. J, those really poisonous. I explained how the urushiol oil binds to skin cells and causes massive blistering, weeping wounds that won't stop itching. And if you touch it, then touch other sensitive areas, you'll be explaining some very uncomfortable things to the doctor. Marcus laughed and said I was just trying to scare him. I gave the same warning to every single class, and the next day, it happened. I walked in, and 3 leaves were missing, torn right off. Everyone against the wall, I shouted. Someone destroyed my property. property, and I'm searching every.
Chat, what's up? Yo, chat. Yo, chat. Yo, chat, you guys enjoying this?
One. I started.
Yo, chat, you guys enjoying this compilation? So basically, I'm gonna get the thing to 130 minutes, and then tomorrow, I'm gonna finish it. I'm gonna finish the rest until it gets to 223. So that's what I'm gonna do.
The front row, making a big show of checking pockets and bags. I'm checking everything. Bags, desks, pockets, shoes, everything except your underwear, obviously. I don't want to catch a case. The class laughed. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw Marcus shove something into his pants, but I kept working down the rows, checking every student one at a time. Finally, I got to Marcus. I patted down his pockets, checked his backpack, looked through his desk. Nothing. I stood up and looked him dead in the eye, knowing exactly where he'd hidden them. You're clear. Marcus leaned back in his chair. His smirk spread across his entire face. The next day, Marcus limped into class, scratching at his arms. His hands were covered in red welts. He couldn't sit still, kept shifting in his seat like he was sitting on fire. I looked up from my desk, leaned in close and whispered, "Yo, Marcus, those really are poisonous." His face went white. Our eyes met. He stopped scratching. That's when he realized I'd played him, and the Great Plant Massacre was over. Mrs. Brooks replanted her mother's plant and never turned in that resignation letter. When my parents wanted to leave me home alone for the first time, I begged them to stay. I was only 9, but Dad just gave me an axe and told me I could use it if anyone broke in. He thought it was hilarious, but I was terrified, and 2 minutes after they left, I heard something. I could hear something ripping, but I told myself it was nothing. I was fine. I had to be fine. I was definitely not fine. I heard the back door smash and knew someone was in my house. I was praying it was my dad pranking me, but when I peeked around the corner, I saw him. Someone was robbing my house. I didn't have a phone downstairs, and I literally started panicking. I had no idea what to do. I couldn't just wait for him to come downstairs. But then I saw it. I didn't have time to think, so I moved. I carried the heavy thing up the stairs, and when I saw him, he was taking my PS5. Now I knew this was serious. He had his back turned to me, so I creeped up to him as slowly as I could, but then I noticed the gun. If he saw me, he'd shoot me. I was about to swing, but thought, wait, if I kill him, will I go to juvie? But then he started turning. He heard me, and I watched him start to look behind him. And in that moment, I screamed as loud as I could and just threw the axe at him. It smashed into the TV next to him. He instantly gasped and grabbed his chest and could barely stand up. I scared him so bad he started hyperventilating, and I could tell he was having a heart attack, so I stole my phone back and called 911. I think that was his last break-in. My mom called me sobbing and asked if my daughter was still alive while we were watching Bluey on the couch. "Mom, what are you talking about? Ellie's right next to me." She couldn't stop crying. "Turn on the news." Right now, I grabbed the remote and changed the channel, and my whole body went cold. My driver's license photo filled the screen, my full name underneath it, the words Amber Alert in red across the top, and a ticker at the bottom that said, "Child believed to be in danger." My ex never accepted losing custody. 2 years of court battles, and when the judge ruled in my favor, she screamed in the courtroom that had stolen her daughter. The last thing she said to me was, "I will make sure you never see Ellie again." I thought she was just angry. I should have known better. Ellie tugged my sleeve. "Daddy, why is your picture on TV?" I couldn't answer her. I just stared at my own face on the screen while my daughter sat next to me in her unicorn pajamas, safe and happy and covered in goldfish crumbs. I grabbed the remote and switched it back to Bluey before she could read anything. She wasn't kidnapped, not missing, not in danger. My phone kept buzzing with calls I couldn't answer. My sister, my boss numbers. I didn't recognize. I called 911 with shaking hands and told them my name was on the Amber Alert, that it was false, that I had full legal custody, that my daughter was sitting right next to me and had been with me the entire weekend. The dispatcher told me to stay calm and stay inside because officers were already on their way. I hung up and Ellie was watching me with her head tilted. "Daddy, why are you talking so fast? Are you in trouble?" I knelt down and tried to smile. "Some people are coming to visit. Everything's going to be okay." Then I heard the sirens. Ellie ran to the window and pushed the curtain aside and her face lit up. "Daddy, there's police cars. Lots of them. Are they coming to our house?" My chest got tight. I walked to the front door and opened it before they could knock. 4 officers stood on my porch with their hands on their holsters, and one of them had his weapon half drawn. Behind me, Bluey was still playing hands where I can see them. "Step outside slowly." I stepped onto the porch with my hands raised. "The child, where is she?" "Inside watching TV. She's fine. She's been with me the whole, sir. We need to verify that. Do not move." One of the officers walked past me and disappeared into my house while I stood frozen on my own porch with my hands in the air. I could hear Ellie's voice from the living room. "Hi, are you here to visit my daddy?" Then I heard her footsteps coming toward the door. "Daddy, why are you standing like that outside?" She was clutching her stuffed elephant by the ear and squinting at all the flashing lights. "Daddy, why do the police have guns? Did we do something bad?" bad. Every officer on my porch went still. The lead cop looked at her, then down at his phone, then back at her again. She wasn't crying. She wasn't scared. She wasn't being held against her will. She was a 4-year-old in unicorn pajamas, wondering why grown-ups with guns were standing outside her house. No, sweetheart, I said, Daddy didn't do anything bad. These nice people just got some wrong information. The cop studied my face for a long moment, then looked back at Ellie. She waved at him. He didn't wave back, but something in his expression softened. Dispatch, cancel the Amber Alert. Child is safe. False report. He turned to me. You can put your hands down. Ellie tugged my shirt. Daddy, can we finish Bluey now? My ex got arrested 3 days later for filing a false Amber Alert. She's facing up to 2 years. She told me she'd make sure I never saw Ellie again. She was half right. I see Ellie every day. You'll never see her again. The second our art teacher left the room, our class clown yelled, "Dare me to eat this paint." Everyone immediately told him it was a horrible idea, but he was already holding it above his mouth. Sadie yelled, "Don't do it. You'll get suspended." But he smirked. He wanted to impress all the girls, so he squeezed the entire tube of blue paint into his mouth. Everyone gasped as he swallowed, staring at him with wide eyes. He looked over at the girls, thinking they'd be impressed, but they were horrified. "Oh my God, are you okay?" "Yeah, I feel fine." But his eyes went wide. He immediately grabbed his stomach. Our teacher was nowhere in sight, and he said, "Guys, I don't feel too good." "Yeah, that was poisonous." He looked nervous, and seconds later, he started panicking. "Guys, what do I do?" Our class was freaking out. He had his hands on his head, freaking out. Then out of nowhere, his eyes rolled back. He completely collapsed onto the ground, and everyone screamed. Our art teacher ran back inside, and the first thing she saw was him on the floor unconscious, blue paint around his mouth. She immediately panicked, grabbing him and shaking him awake. "What happened? What did he do?" There was foam on his mouth, and his skin was gray. "Oh my God, what do I do?" Our art teacher was so stressed out, trying to grab her phone from her purse. She dialed 911, but as she brought it up to her ear, she dropped it. She was trying to grab onto the desks, but out of nowhere, she collapsed on the ground next to him. They were both laying there unconscious, and everyone was crying. The paramedics finally burst through the door and were horrified. They immediately started CPR on both of them. "Come on, kid, wake up." But as he pushed on his ribs, we heard him say, "Ow, stop." They all jumped back, confused. He was supposed to be unconscious, but we heard him. The paramedic grabbed him. "What did you do?" And that's when they checked the paint. Non-toxic. He was faking it for attention the whole time, and since our teacher got put into a coma from her heart attack, he got sent to juvie. I pulled into the last free disabled parking spot, and a man started stomping towards me. He started tapping his knuckles on the glass so hard I thought it was going to crack. "Move. I'm disabled. You're clearly not. This spot is for my daughter with PTSD," I said calmly. He leaned down and looked into the back seat. "Why do you have PTSD, little girl? Is it because your mommy is gone?" he asked, mocking her. My daughter curled into a ball and started crying. "She's dead," she squeaked. The man laughed. "I don't blame her. If I was with your ugly dad and had you as a daughter, I would have wanted to die too." Then he noticed her arms and saw her scars. He rolled up his sleeve and slapped his own arm. "Look, I'm self-injuring it too. Where's my parking spot?" I saw his phone filming my daughter having an anxiety attack and slapped it out of his hand. It flew across the pavement. He then literally crawled under the car to find it. Then I heard my daughter laugh. "What are you laughing at?" She pointed over my shoulder. A white SUV was backing into the spot where the man's legs lay. The guy was writhing on the ground. My daughter yelled too. "You wanted to be disabled? You got it, mister." I've been an emergency room doctor for years, but when my nurse ran up to me, I noticed something was off. She told me a girl just came in badly burned, but she told me, "There's something wrong with that woman. Be careful." I immediately rushed to treat her, but when I saw the burn, it didn't look right. Her mom just smiled and said, "I'll be right back, sweetheart. Remember what we talked about. Be brave for the doctor." She was only 3 or 4, so I took her back and gave her some strong painkillers. "Cooking can be dangerous, huh?" She nodded eagerly. "Yeah, the water was really hot when Mommy poured it." I froze. "She what?" "Mommy says I'm getting better at the brave game." I couldn't focus and asked, "What's that?" "When she puts the iron on me, I'm supposed to count to 5 without crying." I looked down at her arm, and that's when I realized what it was. The burn wasn't from water, it was an iron. She said if I tell anyone about our practice sessions, baby Sadie will have to play too, but she's too little. I felt the tears rolling down my cheek as she laid there. Mommy says all strong women need to learn pain tolerance. That's what her mother did to make her successful. She was just giggling, and when someone knocked on the door, I flinched. It was her mom. "How's my daughter doing?" "No pasta making for you for a while." I just smiled, but felt my fists clenching. I knew I had to get her away from this monster. I stepped out for a second, and immediately
big energy. All this good energy got you all in your feelings. Big.
Dude, why is his story actually pretty interesting? Like, I don't even think I actually ever watched this guy before. It's actually pretty interesting.
Energy.
immediately pulled out my phone. Hello? I need an officer at the hospital right now. But I felt someone watching me. I turned around and saw the mom standing right behind me. She heard me. Is everyone okay? I was shaking. Yes, ma'am. Be there in 1 minute. But I knew she heard me. I walked back into the room, pretending everything was fine. Ma'am, how did you say she got this again? But she wasn't looking at me the same. She was making pasta, but she looked angry. I told her she had to leave the room, but in that moment, she snapped. She ran over to the girl, grabbing her off the bed. I yelled, "No, stop!" But she took her. The girl screamed as her mom ran out of the room, trying to kidnap her. But the second she ran through the door, someone tackled her. Security guards grabbed her and had been waiting the whole time because my nurse knew something was wrong from the start. A 7-year-old in bloody pajamas pounded on my door, begging me to let him in. I yanked Eric inside and slammed the deadbolt. No shoes, shaking so hard I could hear his teeth chattering. I crouched down and asked what happened. He couldn't even breathe right. Daddy hurt Mommy. There was blood everywhere. Daddy said run, so I ran. I looked through the window and saw Oscar sprinting up my driveway. Blood on his shirt, his hands smeared across his face. Eric saw him and screamed, "Don't let him in." Daddy told me if anything bad happens, run here and don't open the door for anyone. Not even him. I'd known Oscar for 3 years. He brought me beer when I moved in. Had Eric on his shoulders at every block party. But looking at him covered in blood while his son begged me to keep him out, I double-checked the lock and pulled Eric away from the door. The pounding started immediately. Oscar was hitting my door with both fists. "Let me in! You have to let me in! She's coming!" I yelled back that I was calling 911 and he needed to get away from my house. "You're making a mistake. Please. She's going to be here any second." Behind me, Eric was sobbing. "He's lying. He always lies. Don't open it." I grabbed my phone and called 911. Domestic disturbance. Blood. Child involved. Send someone now. The operator told me to stay inside and stay calm. Police were 4 minutes out. Then everything went quiet. The pounding stopped. Oscar stopped yelling. I heard nothing but Eric crying and my own heartbeat. I moved to the window and Oscar was standing on my porch completely frozen. He was staring at something behind him with a look I'd never seen on another human being. Pure terror. He pressed himself against my door and whispered loud enough for me to hear. "She's here. Oh God, she's here." That's when I saw her. A woman walking across my lawn like she was out for an evening stroll. Blonde hair, nice clothes, pretty smile. She stepped onto my porch and spoke through the glass. "Hi, I'm Rachel, Eric's mom. There's been a misunderstanding tonight. Oscar hurt me and took Eric. I just want my son back. Can you open the door, please?" Every word sounded perfectly sane. I hesitated. Maybe Oscar really was the bad guy here. Then Eric peeked over the couch and saw her. The sound that came out of him wasn't a scream. It was worse. He collapsed to the floor and crawled backward until he hit the wall. He was more scared of this woman than he was of his blood-covered father. Rachel watched her son hide from her. The smile stayed on her face, but her voice went cold. I said open the door. I told her cops were on the way and she needed to step back. The nice lady act disappeared. What was underneath wasn't human. She raised her hand. Kitchen knife. 6 inches of steel covered in dried blood. "Eric is my son. I'm taking him home tonight." She swung at my window before I could move. Glass exploded into my living room. Oscar screamed from outside. "Back door! I'm coming in the back!" He burst through my kitchen just as Rachel climbed through the shattered window. He threw himself between her and Eric. She lunged with the knife. Oscar caught the blade across his forearm. Blood sprayed across my carpet. He didn't flinch, grabbed a chair with his good arm and swung it at her head. "Get Eric out of here now!" I grabbed Eric and ran. Behind me I heard struggling, glass crunching, then sirens. When I came back, Rachel was face down on my floor in handcuffs. Oscar was slumped against the wall, bleeding bad but conscious. He told me Rachel lost custody 2 years ago after she tried to drown Eric. Psychotic break. She got out 6 months back. Tonight she came for him with a knife. My teacher backed away from me like I pulled a knife on her and ran out of the room screaming for help. I don't know what she saw because all I did was open my mouth and cover it with my hand. I was in the front row with my notes open, fighting to stay awake when my body gave out. Ever since my dad died, I've been working warehouse shifts at night so my mom doesn't have to pick up a third job. If I yawned, it's only because my body had nothing left to give. She came back with 2 security guards and pointed at me. That one, he bared his teeth at me. He's like a monkey. They yanked me out of my chair and slammed me face down on the desk. I tried to tell them I was just tired, but they pinned my arms behind my back and cuffed me. "You want to act like an animal, we'll treat you like one." They dragged me down the hallway past every classroom door. Kids pressed against the windows watching. Teachers stepped into the hall and just stared. One of the cops looked at me and said, "You people always make it harder than it has to be." They put me in a chair in the principal's office. One of them read the report out loud. "Ape-like behavior, aggressive posturing." The principal looked at me and said, "You understand we have to treat this as an assault." I told him I yawned. He put his hand up. "We've heard enough." They called my mom. She walked in still wearing her scrubs. She took one look at me in the handcuffs and picked up the incident report. She read it and looked up. Ape-like behavior. Is that because my son is black? Nobody said a word. They showed her the classroom footage. She slammed her hands on the desk. Are you serious? All of this over a yawn? She took a picture of the report and a picture of my wrists in the handcuffs. Take the handcuffs off my son right now, or I will sue you and every adult in this building. The handcuffs came off so fast they scraped my wrists. She grabbed my hand and walked me out. In the parking lot, she held my face and said, "You're the strongest kid I know." Then she got back in her car and drove to her next shift because she couldn't afford to miss any more hours. When my best friend ran up to me after school and told me he got invited to a party, I was instantly nervous. In North Korea, if you were caught doing anything illegal, you'd never see your family again. I knew it was a bad idea, but he was begging me to go, saying his crush was gonna be there, and when I saw how excited he was, I caved. We showed up that night, and he went to talk to her. I was nervous because people were drinking, saying things about the government. I knew if police heard, they'd get taken from their families. But not even 5 minutes later, I heard someone crying. I looked up and saw my best friend come back over to me with tears in his eyes. He was trying so hard not to cry in front of everyone, but when I asked him what happened, he just dragged me outside. He told me he tried to talk to her, but she just made fun of him and laughed at his shirt. She said she doesn't date poor people who can't afford nicer clothes, and I told him we should just leave, but he wouldn't listen. He could see a clothing store down the street, and when he started walking over, I got a terrible feeling. He just stared at a jacket through the window, and I told him he'd be able to afford it one day, and we needed to leave. But before I could say anything else, he bent down and picked up a rock. My heart stopped. I said, "What are you doing?" He didn't answer, and in that moment, he threw it. No! The window shattered, and glass shards cut my arms and face. The alarm started blaring as I screamed, "What are you doing? They're gonna catch us!" But he reached through the broken glass and grabbed the coat. We immediately started running, but heard sirens behind us. I knew we'd get executed if we were caught, and I could feel the sweat dripping off me. We ran back to my house and slammed the door, but we could hear them following us. We both couldn't stop shaking. We thought we had to be safe. There was no way they saw us go into my house. But just as we calmed down, someone knocked on our front door. We both froze, but when I peeked around the corner, I saw my little sister walking over to open it. I yelled, "No!" but it was too late. She turned the lock, and multiple officers instantly shoved the door open, knocking her to the ground. They saw me, covered in cuts from the glass, and grabbed me, throwing me to the ground. They'd beat me with bats, kicked me, and my mom was screaming from down the hall, "Please, stop." They pulled out their handcuffs, and I felt the cold metal on my wrist. This was it. Being arrested for stealing in North Korea meant the end of your life. I looked over at my mom. I looked at my little sister standing in the corner, frozen, tears running down her face. This was it for me. But just before the cuffs clicked, my friend yelled, "Wait! He didn't do it!" The officers turned to look at him. He was standing there, shaking, barely able to get the words out. "It was me. I did it. He didn't steal anything. I did." He held up the jacket, and the officers looked at each other. Then they dropped me and walked over to him. They grabbed him and took the jacket, and I'll never forget his face as he walked out. He was gone, and I haven't seen him since. I pray he's still out there. After Officer Maddox became my training officer, every cop at the precinct told me, "Don't cross him if you want to keep your badge." But when he smirked at me and said, "I didn't know they started handing badges to monkeys," I almost forgot every warning they gave me. I just clenched my fists and kept my mouth shut though. And I kept my mouth shut every time he did something racist to my people until I couldn't anymore. Our first patrol together, Maddox pulled over a car with 3 black teens for a busted taillight. He dragged the driver out and pinned him down on the trunk with his...
Alright guys, that is the end of today's historic compilation. Tomorrow we are going to continue the rest. So, I hope you guys enjoyed today's history compilation. We're going to continue the rest of the video tomorrow. So, thank you for you guys attending this live stream. I love you guys. I'll post some YouTube shorts later today. So, bye guys. I'll be live streaming tomorrow. Bye.